The summons. The Galactic Sovereignty Council had ruled the known universe for 12,000 cycles. Within the crystalline spires of the Grand Nexus Station, representatives from 417 species maintained the delicate balance of interstellar civilization. The Council's word was absolute. Their decrees unquestionable. Their power unchallenged. Until today. High Arbiter Zwaxthara of the Valkyrie Collective adjusted her 7 optical sensors as she reviewed the data streams flowing across her neural interface. Her chitinous fingers, each as precise as surgical instruments, flickered through holographic reports with practiced efficiency. For 2 centuries she had maintained order in this chamber, mediating disputes between species that would otherwise tear each other apart. The session will commence, her translator device announced, its harmonic tones reverberating through the vast chamber. Around her, the assembled delegates settled into their respective environmental pods. The methane breathers of Sector 9. The crystalline consciousness of the Shimmer Collective. The aquatic Drenmora in their suspended fluid spheres. Beside Zwaxthara, Commander Wraith Nor of the Keshan Empire folded his 4 arms across his armored thorax. The Keshans were warriors, conquerors of 70 star systems before joining the sovereignty. His reputation for ruthless efficiency was well earned. Another standard session, I presume, Wraith Nor rumbled, his translator converting his subsonic growls into common speech. Minor trade disputes. Territory negotiations. The usual tedium. Zwaxthara would have agreed, except for the anomaly in her briefing. There is one irregular item. A petition from an unlisted species. They call themselves humans. Humans? Wraith Nor's translator carried his confusion. Never heard of them. From which sector? That's the irregularity. Sector 471. The quarantine zone. A ripple of chemical signals passed through the chamber. The quarantine zones were regions deemed too primitive for contact. Species there were monitored but left undisturbed until they achieved sufficient technological advancement. It typically took species millennia to reach that threshold. Impossible, interjected Ambassador Elwesis Andra, her serpentine form coiling within her heated chamber. The Cytherian's forked tongue tasted the air, sensing the tension. The last survey of Sector 471 was only 400 cycles ago. The dominant species there were barely into atomic age. Chemical propulsion. Pathetic. Nevertheless, Zwaxthara continued, they have transmitted a formal petition for recognition. They claim to have achieved faster-than-light capability and request representation in the sovereignty. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds, bioluminescent flashes and pheromone clouds. Such a leap was unprecedented. Unnatural. Wraith Nor's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered laughter. FTL in 400 cycles? They either lie or they stumbled upon ancient technology. Either way, they're unprepared for this council. The protocols are clear, Zwaxthara stated, her voice cutting through the chaos. Any species achieving FTL capability may petition for recognition. We must hear them. Then let us witness this cosmic jest, said Chancellor Vornake, the slug-like Braxian who controlled the Council's military forces. His translated voice dripped with condescension. Bring in these humans. Let them embarrass themselves before we return to matters of consequence. Zwaxthara signaled the entrance protocol. The massive doors at the chamber's far end, crafted from compressed neutron matter and adorned with the symbols of 1,000 civilizations, began to slide open. A viewing platform extended into the chamber's center, hovering above the gathering like a stage. The delegates watched with varying degrees of interest and amusement as 3 figures emerged from the entrance corridor. They were bipedal, Zwaxthara noted immediately. Bilaterally symmetrical. Remarkably similar to a dozen other species in basic structure, yet with notable differences. Their skin was smooth, lacking scales, chitin, or fur patterns of significance. They wore simple dark coverings, what appeared to be ceremonial attire. The lead human was a female of their species, standing approximately 1.7 meters tall. Her hair was dark and pulled back in a practical style. Her face bore an expression Zwaxthara's experience recognized as focused determination. Behind her walked 2 others, one male and one female, carrying data devices. What struck Zwaxthara most were their eyes. Unlike the multifaceted optical sensors of evolved species, these humans had simple binocular vision. Yet something in their gaze suggested a predatory alertness that made her instinctively uncomfortable. The lead human stepped onto the platform, and when she spoke, her voice was transmitted through a translation device of clearly human manufacture. Honored members of the Galactic Sovereignty Council, I am Ambassador Kira Valen of the United Earth Coalition. On behalf of humanity's 8 billion citizens across our home system and our new colonies, I bring greetings and a formal petition for recognition. The chamber fell silent. Not because of her words, which were standard protocol, but because of what she did next. Ambassador Valen smiled. It was a small gesture, a slight upturn of her lips showing teeth. But to the assembled species who understood the universal language of threat displays, the sight of a predator species bearing their fangs sent a clear message. These humans were not here to beg for acceptance. They were here to claim what they believed was already theirs. The examination. High Arbiter ZYX-Thera had evaluated petitions from 43 species during her tenure. She knew the patterns. The nervous trembling of first contact species. The elaborate displays of submission meant to appease potential threats. The careful political maneuvering to secure favorable trade terms. Ambassador Kira Valen exhibited none of these behaviors. The Council acknowledges your petition, ZYX-Thera began, following protocol. However, we must verify your claims. Species from quarantine zones require extensive evaluation before recognition. The jump from atomic age to faster-than-light capability in such a brief period raises significant concerns. Concerns we anticipated, Valen replied smoothly. Her translator carried not just words but subtle emotional undertones. Confidence. Preparedness. We've prepared complete documentation of our technological progression. My colleague, Dr. Marcus Chin, will present the data. The male human stepped forward, interfacing his device with the Council's systems. Holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing mathematical equations, engineering schematics, and historical records. Commander Wraith Nor leaned forward, his tactical mind immediately analyzing the information. What he saw disturbed him. The humans hadn't stolen ancient technology. They hadn't been gifted knowledge by some benefactor species. They had clawed their way to the stars through brutal trial and error, catastrophic failures, and stubborn persistence. Your species achieved nuclear fission during a global war, Wraith Nor observed, his tone sharp with accusation. You dropped atomic weapons on your own population centers. We did, Valen confirmed without hesitation or shame. We nearly destroyed ourselves. But we learned. We built international coalitions. We turned weapons into power sources. We chose survival over annihilation. Barely, interjected Ambassador Alwesisandra, her serpentine body coiling tighter. Your historical records show countless wars, genocides, environmental catastrophes. You're a species that solves problems through violence. We're a species that survives despite violence, Valen corrected. We don't pretend to be perfect, Ambassador. We acknowledge our capacity for destruction. But we also recognize our capacity for adaptation, innovation, and unprecedented cooperation when faced with existential threats. Dr. Chen continued his presentation, showing Earth's space program development. Chemical rockets. Orbital stations. Lunar landings using what the Council would consider primitive technology. Then the breakthrough, a revolutionary propulsion system based on quantum field manipulation. Chancellor Vornake's massive form shifted in his fluid tank. This propulsion system. You discovered it independently? Yes, Chin replied. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, our team lead, theorized that quantum vacuum fluctuations could be harnessed for propulsion. It took 27 years of research, including 3 deaths during testing, but we succeeded. 3 deaths. The number hung in the chamber like an accusation. Most species abandon research programs after a single casualty. The humans had continued despite multiple losses. You sacrificed your own people for this technology, ZYX-Thera said, unable to keep the judgment from her translated voice. No, Valen's response was firm. They volunteered. Dr. Tanaka knew the risks. So did engineers Pavel Sokolov and Jennifer Wu. They believed humanity's future lay beyond our solar system, and they gave their lives to make that possible. We honor their sacrifice by being here today. The third human, a woman introduced as Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, activated another display. Our current fleet consists of 47 FTL-capable vessels, 32 exploration ships, 12 colony transports, and 3 defensive cruisers. Defensive cruisers? Wraith Nor's mandibles clicked together. You arm your vessels? Of course, Okonkwo replied matter-of-factly. Space is vast and unknown. We'd be foolish to explore it defenseless. Our ships carry kinetic weapons, directed energy systems, and defensive shielding. Standard precautions. Standard precautions. The humans spoke of weapons with the same casual tone others discussed cargo capacity. ZYX-Thera accessed her neural database, cross-referencing human military capabilities with known species at similar development stages. What she found was alarming. Humans had somehow compressed technological advancement that should have taken millennia into mere centuries. Their weapons, while primitive by Council standards, showed innovative applications that more advanced species had never considered. Your petition will require deliberation, ZYX-Thera announced. The Council must discuss whether humanity meets the criteria for recognition. Ambassador Valen, you and your delegation will wait in the visitor chambers while we confer. Of course, High Arbiter, Valen said with that unsettling smile. We await your decision. As the humans departed, the chamber erupted in debate before the doors even fully closed. Absolutely not, Chancellor Vornake declared. They're violent, reckless, and dangerous. They've been spacefaring for what, 50 cycles? They need at least 500 more years of development. Their technological progress is undeniable, countered Scholar Printax, the crystalline consciousness whose species valued knowledge above all. Their approach to problem-solving shows remarkable creativity. Brutal, yes, but effective. That's exactly the problem, Alessandra hissed. They see problems as things to be conquered. They'll destabilize the entire council with that attitude. Wraith Nor remained silent, reviewing the tactical data. The humans had colonized 3 planets and 14 moons in their home system. Their population was growing exponentially. Their resource extraction was efficient if environmentally questionable. They were expanding rapidly, and nothing the council said would stop that expansion. The question wasn't whether humans belonged in the sovereignty. The question was whether the sovereignty could afford to have them as enemies. We're missing the larger issue, Wraith Nor finally spoke. These humans didn't petition for recognition because they need our approval. They petitioned because their protocols required it. With or without our blessing, they'll continue expanding. We must decide if they do so as allies or adversaries. ZYX-Thera's optical sensors focused on the Keshan commander. He understood strategy, the brutal calculus of power. And he recognized something in the humans that others missed. They were apex predators entering a territory claimed by others. And they had no intention of submitting to the existing hierarchy. The demonstration. The council's deliberation stretched into its 3rd hour. Ambassador Kira Valen sat in the visitor chamber, seemingly relaxed while Dr. Marcus Chin and Admiral Sarah Okonkwo reviewed their contingency plans. They're stalling, Okonkwo observed, her military experience evident in her tactical assessment. Standard dominance behavior. Make us wait, make us doubt, soften us up for rejection. Or they're genuinely divided, Chin suggested. Our technological leap probably violates their expectations. We don't fit their models. Valen smiled, the expression carrying more steel than warmth. We've never fit anyone's models. That's humanity's advantage. Before either could respond, the chamber doors opened. But it wasn't a council representative who entered. It was a delegation of 3 beings Valen recognized from the briefing materials. The Tyson Compact, a militaristic species that controlled 17 star systems through aggressive expansion. The lead Tyson, General Kordax, stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled hide bearing scars from countless battles. His species had evolved as pack hunters on a death world, and their predatory nature showed in every movement. So, Kordax's translator rendered his growl into contemptuous words, the primitive newcomers who disturbed the council's precious order. Let me observe these humans who claim to belong among the stars. Valen stood smoothly, matching the general's aggressive posture with calm confidence. General Kordax of the Tyson Compact. Your military record is impressive. 47 conquered systems, 12 subjugated species. You've built an empire on violence and intimidation. I state facts, not judgments, Valen replied. Your success speaks to effective strategy and superior force projection. I respect efficiency. Kordax's translator couldn't quite capture his surprise at her response. Most species cowered before Tyson aggression. This human acknowledged his power without submission. Your species is weak, Kordax continued, circling the 3 humans like prey. Small. Soft. No natural weapons. No armor. You come from a gentle world and believe you can survive among species forged in harsher fires. Earth has 97% ocean coverage, Chin interjected, his academic tone contrasting sharply with the tension. Life evolved competing for limited land resources. We share our planet with creatures that can kill us in seconds. Venomous snakes. Great white sharks. Saltwater crocodiles. Polar bears. We're not apex predators because of physical advantages, General. We're apex predators because we learned to hunt things bigger, stronger, and deadlier than ourselves. Okonkwo added, we also learned to hunt each other. Humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. We fought with stones, bronze, steel, gunpowder, nuclear weapons, and now energy systems. We've never stopped developing more efficient ways to kill threats. Kordax's aggressive circling stopped. Something in the humans' responses triggered a recognition. They spoke of violence the way his own species did, as a tool, a science, a necessary capability. Words, Kordax dismissed. The Council speaks words too. But I judge species by their actions. You claim to belong among us? Prove it. How would you like us to prove ourselves, General? Valen asked. Combat, Kordax stated simply. The Tyson way. You, ambassador, against one of my junior warriors. If you survive 3 minutes, I'll support your petition. If you fall, I'll recommend your species return to your quarantine zone for another 1,000 cycles. The chamber fell silent. Chin and Okonkwo moved to protest, but Valen raised her hand. You're suggesting trial by combat? That's not part of the official petition process. The Council follows official processes, Kordax agreed. But I follow the warrior's code. Prove your species has the strength to stand among us, or admit you're not ready. Valen considered the general carefully. This wasn't about formal protocols. Kordax was testing her, testing humanity's response to direct challenge. If she refused, she'd appear weak. If she accepted and lost, humanity's petition failed. If she accepted and won, she'd earn respect. I accept your challenge, General, Valen said calmly. But I propose modified terms. I'll face your warrior for 3 minutes as suggested. But the combat will be observed by the full council. Your support or opposition will be public record. Kordax's translator carried what might have been laughter. Agreed. We'll arrange it for tomorrow's session. Prepare yourself, Ambassador. My warriors show no mercy. After the Tyson delegation departed, Okonkwo immediately began protest. Kira, this is insane. You're a diplomat, not a soldier. Those Tyson warriors are professional killers. I'm aware, Valen replied, already accessing her neural implant to review combat protocols. But this isn't really about combat, Sarah. It's about narrative. If I refuse, we're cowards. If I lose gracefully, we're noble failures. But if I win, we become something the Council hasn't seen before. And what's that? Chen asked. A species that refuses to accept defeat as an option. The next day, the Council chamber had been reconfigured. A combat arena occupied the central platform, a circular space 20 meters in diameter. The assembled delegates watched with varying degrees of interest and concern. High Arbiter ZYX-Thera had initially opposed the display, but Chancellor Vornake overruled her. Let the primitive species learn their place, he had argued. The Council agreed. Ambassador Valen entered the arena wearing flexible combat armor, human-designed and significantly less bulky than Tyson military gear. Her opponent, a warrior named Thraknor, stood opposite her. He was young by Tyson standards, but still massed twice her weight and carried natural weapons in his claws and teeth. 3 minutes, Kordax announced. No lethal force. First to yield or fall unconscious loses. Wraithnor observed the combatants carefully. The Tyson warrior radiated confidence, already moving into an aggressive stance. The human remained still, balanced, watching her opponent with predatory focus. The signal sounded. Thraknor charged immediately, relying on his species' standard tactic of overwhelming force. His claws extended, reaching for the smaller human. Valen moved. Not backward in retreat, but forward at an angle, using the Tyson's momentum against him. Her hand struck his extended arm at a precise joint, redirecting his charge past her. As he stumbled, she struck his knee from the side, buckling his leg. Thraknor roared, spinning with surprising speed. But Valen was already moving, her combat style fluid and adaptive. She didn't try to match his strength. She targeted joints, pressure points, anatomical weaknesses. She's using Tyson physiology against him, Wraithnor observed to ZYX-Thera. She studied his species structure and identified vulnerabilities. The fight continued for 90 seconds before Thraknor, frustrated and injured, made a critical mistake. He overextended, trying to grab the human in a crushing hold. Valen dropped beneath his arms, swept his remaining stable leg, and as he fell, she locked a hold around his throat, applying pressure to his primary blood vessels. 8 seconds later, Thraknor fell unconscious. The chamber erupted in chaos. Valen released her opponent, checking his vital signs before standing. She wasn't even breathing heavily. 3 minutes weren't necessary, she said calmly. General Kordax, I believe we've demonstrated humanity's capability. For the first time in recorded council history, a Tyson general bowed to another species. The Tyson Compact supports Earth's petition for recognition, Kordax announced. These humans are warriors worthy of respect. The revelation. The combat display changed everything. In the Council's 12,000 cycle history, no newly petitioning species had ever defeated a Tyson warrior in single combat. Ambassador Kira Valen had done it in under 2 minutes. High Arbiter Zwaxthara reconvened the formal session, her optical sensors tracking the subtle shifts in delegate behavior. Where there had been condescension, now there was wariness. Where there had been amusement, now there was calculation. The Council recognizes that unexpected demonstration, Zwaxthara began carefully. However, physical prowess alone does not qualify a species for sovereignty membership. We must evaluate your civilization's broader capabilities, your contributions to galactic society, your technological innovations beyond propulsion systems. Of course, Valen replied, her diplomatic mask firmly back in place despite the morning's violence. Dr. Chen, please present our scientific achievements. Chen activated the holographic displays, showing streams of data that made several council members' translators emit sounds of surprise. Mathematical proofs, theoretical physics frameworks, medical advances, artificial intelligence architectures. Scholar Printax, the crystalline consciousness, absorbed the information with growing fascination. This quantum computing approach, you're using biological neural networks as processing substrates? That's been theorized for millennia, but no species has successfully implemented it. We had a unique advantage, Chen explained. Our own brains are biological quantum computers. We simply scaled up the model. Current generation systems can process 10 to the power of 47 calculations per second. Impossible, declared Magister Thelvas of the Archon Collective, a species that prided itself on computational superiority. Our most advanced quantum systems achieve 10 to the power of 42 operations. You're claiming 5 orders of magnitude improvement. We're not claiming, Chen replied mildly. We're demonstrating. Ambassador, may I? Valen nodded. Chen interfaced with the Council's data systems directly, running a complex calculation in real time. The problem he chose was deliberately provocative. A trade route optimization for the entire sovereignty network involving 417 species, 12,000 planets, and millions of variables. The Council's central processing systems had estimated it would take 6 cycles to fully optimize such a calculation. Chen's human system solved it in 47 seconds. Your solution shows 23% efficiency improvement over current routes, Scholar Printax announced, their crystalline structure glowing with excitement. This is extraordinary. Chancellor Vornake shifted in his fluid tank, his massive form creating ripples. Computational ability is impressive, but the sovereignty requires more than processing power. We require species that contribute to stability. Order. Your history suggests you're incapable of these things. Does it? Valen challenged. Or does our history suggest we're capable of learning from catastrophic mistakes? Admiral Okonkwo, please present the Unity Accords. Okonkwo brought up historical records from Earth's recent past. Images of a planet divided by nations, religions, ideologies. War, famine, environmental collapse. Then a shift. The climate crisis of 2047 that threatened extinction. The global mobilization that followed. We faced a choice, Okonkwo explained. Continue fighting each other while our planet died, or unify despite our differences. We chose survival. The Unity Accords of 2051 dissolved national borders, established global governance, and redirected military spending towards space exploration and planetary restoration. You eliminated warfare? Ambassador Alwysisandra asked skeptically. We eliminated international warfare, Okonkwo corrected. Small conflicts still occur. We're not perfect, but we established frameworks for resolving disputes without large-scale violence. We created the coalition not through conquest like the Tyson or through ancient tradition like the sovereignty. We created it through conscious choice. Wraithnor's forearms crossed thoughtfully. You unified your entire species in, what? 70 cycles? That's unprecedented. Necessity drives innovation, Valen said. We unified because extinction was the alternative. But that experience taught us something valuable. Cooperation produces better outcomes than competition. We didn't forget that lesson when we reached the stars. Show them the colonies, Shin suggested quietly. Valen brought up displays of humanity's extrasolar settlements. 3 planets and 14 moons as previously stated. But the council delegates who studied the images carefully noticed something unusual. These aren't military installations, ZYX-Thara observed. You're establishing civilian settlements. Families. Children. Of course, Valen replied. What's the point of reaching the stars if we don't bring our civilization with us? Our colonies aren't forward operating bases or resource extraction sites. They're homes. Scholar Printax examined the data more closely. Your colony on Kepler 442b, you're terraforming? Attempting to, Shin corrected. It's a multi-generation project. We're introducing engineered microorganisms to alter the atmospheric composition. If successful, in approximately 200 years, the planet will support Earth-standard life without environmental suits. You're modifying an entire planetary ecosystem? Sandra's serpentine form coiled in agitation. That's incredibly dangerous. The ecological ramifications alone are carefully calculated, Shin interrupted. We made the mistake of damaging our own planet's ecosystem through careless industrial expansion. We won't repeat that error. Every organism we've introduced has been modeled through 10,000 generations of simulation. We're not conquering these worlds. We're carefully integrating with them. The council chamber fell into troubled silence. Every aspect of humanity's presentation challenged their assumptions. These weren't primitive newcomers stumbling into galactic civilization. These were strategic thinkers who learned from mistakes, adapted rapidly, and planned in terms of centuries. I have a question, Wraithnor said finally. Your species achieved all of this in less than 500 cycles since industrialization. You went from pre-industrial agriculture to faster-than-light travel in what the Keshan Empire considers a single military generation. How? Valen met his compound eyes directly. Because we had to, Commander. Earth has limited resources and a growing population. We had no choice but to innovate or die. We chose innovation. We chose the stars. And we made sacrifices others might consider unacceptable to get here. What kind of sacrifices? ZYX-Thara asked carefully. 3 deaths during FTL testing as we mentioned, Okonkwo said. But also economic hardship as we redirected global resources. Social disruption as traditional structures collapsed. Cultural changes as we unified diverse populations. We asked our people to accept short-term suffering for long-term survival. And they agreed? Sandra sounded incredulous. Not unanimously, Valen admitted. We had resistance, protests, some violence. But the majority understood the alternative was extinction. We made the hard choice. We always make the hard choice. ZYX-Thara's neural interfaces processed thousands of data points simultaneously. The humans' presentation was masterful. They acknowledged their flaws while demonstrating their capabilities. They showed violence but framed it as necessary adaptation. They presented themselves not as supplicants requesting entry but as equals claiming their rightful place. The council will adjourn for deliberation, ZYX-Thara announced. Ambassador Valen, your delegation has presented compelling evidence. However, the decision to grant sovereignty recognition is not made lightly. We will consider all factors and render judgment tomorrow. As the council chamber emptied, Chancellor Vornake approached ZYX-Thara privately. They're dangerous, he said without preamble. Everything about them screams threat. They adapt too quickly. Learn too fast. They're predators who've learned to smile while showing their teeth. I know, ZYX-Thara agreed. But Wraithnor raised the crucial question. Can we afford to make them enemies? Can we afford to make them allies? Vornake countered. Once they're inside the sovereignty, they'll have access to our technology, our networks, our weaknesses. In 50 cycles, they could challenge the council itself. ZYX-Thara's optical sensors dimmed thoughtfully. They could challenge us now if they chose violence over diplomacy. They have the capability. But they came here, followed our protocols, submitted to our evaluation. That suggests they value cooperation. Or they're strategic enough to know direct confrontation would fail, Vornake suggested darkly. High Arbiter, I've maintained order in the sovereignty for 3 centuries. I've seen species rise and fall. These humans, they remind me of every successful conqueror in galactic history. Perhaps, ZYX-Thara acknowledged. Or perhaps they remind you of what the sovereignty was when it began. Young, aggressive, certain of its righteousness. Tell me, Chancellor, When did we stop being explorers and become gatekeepers? The question hung in the crystalline air, unanswered. The opposition. While the council deliberated, Ambassador Kira Valen met privately with General Kordax in one of the Tyson diplomatic quarters. The space was deliberately sparse, reflecting the warrior culture's disdain for excess comfort. Your combat skills are impressive, Kordax acknowledged, offering Valen a seat. But I suspect you're not primarily a warrior. I'm not, Valen confirmed. Before becoming a diplomat, I was a corporate negotiator. Hostile acquisitions mostly. Then the Unity Accords happened, and my skills transferred to international diplomacy. You think of this as a corporate acquisition? Kordax's translator carried amusement. I think of everything as negotiation, Valen replied. But I trained in combat because I learned early that people respect what they fear. Not fear of violence, necessarily, but fear of capability. You respect me now because I defeated your warrior. Before that, I was just an interesting curiosity. Kordax's scarred hide rippled in what might have been laughter. Truth spoken plainly. I appreciate that. Most species hide their true nature behind diplomatic niceties. You humans are refreshingly honest about your predatory instincts. We've learned that denying our nature causes more problems than acknowledging it, Valen said. We are predators. We are competitive. We are aggressive when threatened. Pretending otherwise would be dishonest and dangerous. This honesty will not serve you well with the Council, Kordax warned. They prefer species that perform submission, that acknowledge the sovereignty's superiority. Your refusal to do so will create enemies. I know, Valen acknowledged. How many votes against us do you estimate? Chancellor Vornake will oppose you. He views humans as destabilizing. The Braxian Collective has maintained power by controlling military access, and your demonstrated capabilities threaten that control. Kordax counted on his claws. Ambassador Elwes Andra will vote against. The Cytherians built their influence on cultural sophistication, and your pragmatic brutality offends their sensibilities. Scholar Printax will support you, fascinated by your technology. I will support you, respecting your warrior spirit. That leaves High Arbiter Zyxthra and 412 other delegates, Valen calculated. What about Commander Wraithnor? Wraithnor is strategic. He'll vote based on tactical advantage, not emotion. If he believes humanity serves Keshan interests, he'll support you. If not. Kordax left the implication hanging. Valen's neural implant pinged softly. Dr. Chen's message appeared in her peripheral vision. Urgent. Multiple delegations requesting private meetings. It seems, Valen said, standing, that the real negotiations are beginning. Over the next 10 hours, Ambassador Valen met with 17 different delegations. Each meeting followed a familiar pattern. The delegates would express concerns about humanity's rapid advancement, then carefully probe for what humans wanted in exchange for aligning with their particular faction. The Archon Collective offered technological exchanges. The Meridian Alliance proposed trade agreements. The Quillian Sovereignty, a group of spiritually focused species, suggested cultural integration programs. Each offer came with strings attached. Obligations, alliances, subordination to existing power structures. Valen rejected them all politely but firmly. We're not seeking to join a faction, she explained for the 7th time to Ambassador Jextar of the Hronan Confederacy. We're seeking equal recognition within the sovereignty. We won't subordinate ourselves to any existing power block. Then you'll fail, Jextar replied bluntly. The insectoid's compound eyes reflected his certainty. The Council doesn't grant recognition to truly independent species. Every member belongs to an alliance, formal or informal. Lone species have no protection, no advocacy, no chance of advancement. We'll be the first exception, Valen said with absolute confidence. After Jextar departed, Admiral Okonkwo reviewed the tactical situation. Kira, he's right. We're making enemies of everyone by refusing to choose sides. Even species that might support us individually won't risk opposing their alliance partners. I know, Valen agreed. But we didn't come here to become someone's client state. We came here to claim our place as equals. That means not subordinating ourselves to any existing power structure. That's incredibly risky, Shin observed. If the vote fails, we're back to quarantine status. It could take centuries to get another chance at recognition. Then we'd better make sure the vote succeeds, Valen replied. The next morning, as the council reconvened, High Arbiter Zyxthra could sense the tension in the chamber. Overnight, The human question had evolved from a simple petition into a referendum on the sovereignty's power structure itself. The council has deliberated, ZYX announced. We will now hear arguments for and against Earth's petition. Chancellor Vorne, you may speak first. The massive Braxian shifted in his fluid tank, his translated voice carrying authority accumulated over centuries. The sovereignty exists to maintain order, balance, stability. For 12,000 cycles, we have carefully managed the introduction of new species into our civilization. This careful process ensures that newcomers understand their place, their role, their obligations to the greater whole. Humanity, Vorne K continued, represents chaos, unpredictability, danger. They advance too quickly, adapt too readily, refuse to acknowledge the natural hierarchy of civilizations. They defeated a Tyson warrior through study and preparation, yes, but this demonstrates exactly why they're dangerous. They treat every challenge as a problem to solve through superior force or cunning. This mentality will destabilize the delicate balance we've maintained. Furthermore, the Chancellor's voice grew darker. They are violent by nature. Their history is written in blood. They wage war against themselves, their planet, and now they bring that violence to the stars. I vote to deny Earth's petition and return them to quarantine status for a minimum of 1,000 cycles. Silence followed his pronouncement. Then Scholar Printax activated their translation interface. I respectfully disagree with the Chancellor. The crystalline being's harmonics filled the chamber. Humanity's violence is matched by their capacity for cooperation. Their technological innovations alone justify recognition. Their quantum computing systems, their biological engineering, their mathematical proofs all advance galactic knowledge. Science should not be hindered by fear. Science without wisdom is destruction. Ambassador Alwesisandra interjected, her serpentine form coiling agitatedly. The humans may possess impressive technology, but they lack the cultural maturity to wield it responsibly. Their 3-minute victory over a Tyson warrior proves they view everything through a lens of competition and conquest. The sovereignty requires species that value harmony, not dominance. I vote against their petition. General Kordax rose, his massive form commanding attention. The Cytherians speak of harmony while building their influence through manipulation and cultural imperialism. At least humans are honest about their nature. They are warriors, yes. But they are warriors who chose cooperation over eternal conflict. They unified their entire planet not through conquest but through recognition that survival required unity. The Tyson Compact respects this. I vote in favor of their petition. The debate continued for hours. Delegates argued passionately on both sides. Some saw humanity as a threat to the established order. Others saw them as a necessary disruption to a stagnant system. Still others simply calculated political advantage. Commander Wraith Nor had remained silent throughout, his 4 arms folded across his thorax. Now he finally spoke, his words measured and strategic. This debate misses the fundamental question, Wraith Nor stated. We are not deciding whether humans are worthy of recognition. We are deciding whether the sovereignty is strong enough to contain them. Because make no mistake, whether we grant recognition or not, humanity will continue expanding. They will continue advancing. The only question is whether they do so as allies bound by sovereignty law, or as independent actors unconstrained by our regulations. Are you suggesting we admit them out of fear? Alwesisandra challenged. I'm suggesting we admit them out of strategic necessity, Wraith Nor corrected. The Keshan Empire did not build our power through rigid adherence to tradition. We built it through recognizing when the strategic landscape changed and adapting accordingly. Humanity represents a fundamental shift in that landscape. We must adapt or become irrelevant. ZYX absorbed the arguments, her neural processors calculating probabilities and outcomes. The chamber was divided almost perfectly, with smaller delegations waiting to see which way the major powers would lean before casting their own votes. Ambassador Valen, ZYX called out. You have heard the Council's concerns. Do you wish to address them before we vote? Valen stood, and in that moment, every being in the chamber felt the weight of her presence. Not through physical intimidation like the Tyson or computational power like the Archons, but through sheer force of will. High Arbiter, honored delegates, Valen began. You fear us because we don't fit your models. We advance too quickly. We're too violent, too competitive, too unpredictable. These criticisms are valid. We are all of these things. But let me tell you what else we are, she continued, her voice carrying absolute conviction. We are survivors. When our planet tried to kill us with ice ages and volcanic eruptions, we survived. When we nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons, we chose survival over annihilation. When climate change threatened our extinction, we unified an entire species in a single generation to save our world. You ask if we're worthy of joining the sovereignty. I ask if the sovereignty is worthy of including a species that refuses to accept defeat. You've maintained peace for 12,000 cycles by carefully controlling which species join your ranks. By ensuring that newcomers are weak enough to be managed, compliant enough to be controlled. You've built stability through stagnation. The chamber erupted in protests, but Valen continued over them. We offer you something different. We offer innovation, adaptation, the willingness to make hard choices when necessary. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we're unpredictable. But we're also the species that will stand beside you when the next existential crisis arrives. And in a universe full of entropy and chaos, that crisis will arrive. The question is whether you'll face it with allies who know how to survive the unsurvivable, or whether you'll face it alone because you were too afraid to accept help from species who don't bow to your authority. Valen sat down. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. The council will now vote, ZYX announced. All in favor of granting Earth recognition status within the Galactic Sovereignty Council? The voting began. The decision. The vote was conducted through neural interface, each delegate's decision transmitted simultaneously to the central processing core. ZYX watched the data stream in real time, her optical sensors processing the results as they accumulated. The mathematics were complex. Recognition required not just a simple majority but a supermajority, 67% approval across all delegates. This high threshold was designed to ensure that newly admitted species had broad support, not just factional backing. As the votes finalized, ZYX felt something she hadn't experienced in 2 centuries of arbitration. Genuine uncertainty about the outcome. The vote is complete, she announced. Of 417 delegates, 279 voted in favor of Earth's recognition. 138 voted against. The required threshold is 279 votes. The chamber fell absolutely silent. By a margin of 0 votes, ZYX continued, Earth's petition for recognition is approved. Humanity is now a member species of the Galactic Sovereignty Council. The chamber exploded in chaos. Some delegates celebrated, others protested. Chancellor Vornake's fluid tank bubbled with barely contained rage. Scholar Printax's crystalline structure chimed with joy. General Kordax's roar of approval shook the chamber walls. Ambassador Valen remained seated, her expression carefully neutral even as Dr. Chen and Admiral Okonkwo exchanged relieved glances beside her. However, ZYX's voice cut through the noise. Earth's membership comes with conditions. As is standard for newly recognized species, you will serve a probationary period of 50 cycles. During this time, you will have limited voting rights on council matters. You will be subject to regular reviews of your expansion activities, military developments, and diplomatic conduct. Furthermore, ZYX continued, High Arbiter status grants me authority to impose additional conditions when recognition votes are this close. I am invoking that authority now. Earth will accept a sovereignty observer on their home planet. This observer will report directly to me on humanity's compliance with sovereignty regulations and provide early warning of any destabilizing activities. Valen stood. We accept the conditions, High Arbiter. We welcome sovereignty oversight. Transparency builds trust. You will also, ZYX added, participate in the integration program. This requires your diplomatic corps to train with council mediators, your military to joint exercise with sovereignty defense forces, and your scientists to collaborate on research projects with other member species. The goal is to integrate humanity into existing council frameworks. We accept these conditions as well, Valen replied. When does the integration program begin? Immediately, ZYX said. Commander Wraithnor, you will oversee military integration. Scholar Printax, you will coordinate scientific collaboration. I will personally handle diplomatic training. Chancellor Vornake's translator emitted a sound of disgust. This is a mistake. We've invited a predator into our home and called it diplomacy. History will judge us harshly for this decision. Perhaps, ZYX acknowledged. Or perhaps history will recognize this as the moment the sovereignty adapted to a changing universe. The vote has been cast. The decision is made. We move forward together. As the formal session concluded, delegates began dispersing into smaller groups, already forming new alliances and strategies around humanity's presence. The political landscape of the sovereignty had shifted fundamentally in the space of a single vote. Ambassador Alwesisandra approached Valen as the humans prepared to depart the chamber. "You won by the smallest possible margin," the Cytherian said, her forked tongue tasting the air. "That means half the council actively opposes your presence here. You have no allies except the Tyson, and they respect violence, not diplomacy. How do you intend to survive in this environment?" Valen met the Serpentine ambassador's gaze directly. "The same way humanity has always survived, Ambassador. By adapting faster than our enemies can react. By building alliances through demonstrated value rather than political manipulation. By being too useful to discard and too dangerous to threaten." "Arrogance," Alwesisandra hissed. "You believe you can navigate council politics through force of will. You'll learn that power here is more subtle than you imagine." "We'll see," Valen replied with that characteristic human smile. "Humanity didn't reach the stars by underestimating our opponents. We won't start now." After the Cytherian departed, General Kordax approached. "A word of advice, Ambassador. You made enemies today. Powerful ones. The Chancellor controls military logistics. Alwesisandra commands cultural influence. Others resent that you refused their factional overtures. They will work to undermine you to prove your admission was a mistake." "I expected as much," Valen acknowledged. "Do you have suggestions?" "Prove them wrong immediately," Kordax said. "The integration program is an opportunity. Excel at it. Show the Council that humans can follow regulations while still maintaining your independence. Demonstrate value to species that voted against you. Convert enemies into allies through demonstrated competence." "And if competence isn't enough?" Kordax's scarred hide rippled in approval. "Then demonstrate something more visceral. The Council respects strength, but they respect necessity more. Make yourself indispensable." Later that evening, in the human delegation's quarters, the three representatives reviewed their victory and planned next steps. "We won by 0 votes, Chin observed, reviewing the detailed breakdown. "If a single delegate had voted differently, we'd be heading back to Earth with nothing." "But they didn't," Okonkwo countered. "We're in. Now we need to consolidate that position before our enemies can organize effective opposition." "The observer program concerns me," Chin continued. "Having a sovereignty representative on Earth reporting directly to ZYX-Thera means our internal politics become external intelligence. It's a reasonable precaution from their perspective," Valen said. "We're an unknown variable in their carefully balanced system. They need assurance we're not planning to destabilize everything. We'll cooperate fully, demonstrate transparency, and gradually build trust." "And the integration program?" Okonkwo asked. "It's an opportunity," Valen replied, echoing Kordax's advice. "Military exercises with sovereignty defense forces mean we can evaluate their capabilities while they evaluate ours. Scientific collaboration gives us access to technologies developed over millennia. Diplomatic training lets us understand council power structures from the inside." "You're treating this like corporate intelligence gathering," Chin observed. "Because that's exactly what it is," Valen confirmed. "The integration program is designed to assess us. But assessment works both ways. We'll learn as much about the sovereignty as they learn about us. Then we'll use that information to position ourselves advantageously." "How long do you think we have before the real challenges begin?" Okonkwo asked. "They've already begun," Valen replied. "Our enemies won't wait 50 cycles to test us. They'll create crises, manufacture problems, and force us into situations designed to prove we're not ready for council membership. We need to anticipate their moves and counter them before they materialize." Chin pulled up a tactical display showing the political alignments within the sovereignty. "Chancellor Vornake will move first. He's the most overtly hostile and he controls military logistics. If he can create a situation where humanity appears militarily aggressive or expansionist, he can use that to call for a review of our membership status." "Agreed," Okonkwo said. "Which means we need to be extremely careful about our military activities. No aggressive expansion. No weapons testing near sovereignty borders. Nothing that can be interpreted as threatening." "That still leaves Alwesisandra," Chin noted. "She'll attack our cultural integration. Try to paint us as barbaric, uncivilized, unworthy of sovereignty membership from a social perspective." "Let her," Valen said dismissively. "We've already shown we're warriors. Let's also show we're scholars, artists, philosophers. We'll flood the integration program with our best and brightest. Show the sovereignty that humanity is more than just violence and survival instinct." "And if that's not enough?" Chin pressed. Valen's expression hardened. Then we remind them why they feared us in the first place. The transformation. 3 cycles later, the integration program was in full effect, and the sovereignty was discovering that humanity's capacity for adaptation extended far beyond military innovation. High Arbiter ZYX-Thera reviewed the reports from her observation station with increasing fascination and concern. The human observer on Earth, a diplomatic specialist named Veltarin, was sending daily updates that painted a complex picture of humanity's home world. The humans have restructured their entire governmental system in anticipation of full sovereignty integration, Veltarin reported. They've created new agencies specifically for interstellar relations, established protocols for technology exchange, and begun educational programs to prepare their population for contact with other species. More concerning, the report continued, their rate of adaptation is extraordinary. Within 3 cycles of recognition, they've already begun implementing modifications to their FTL drives based on preliminary data exchanged during scientific collaboration. Their quantum computing teams have proposed 17 new theoretical frameworks that scholar Printax describes as revolutionary. Their military has reorganized around joint operation protocols with sovereignty forces. ZYX-Thera forwarded the report to Commander Wraith Nor with a private note. Your assessment was correct. They're not merely adapting to the sovereignty. They're positioning themselves to reshape it. The military integration exercises proved equally revealing. Admiral Okonkwo had personally led human forces in joint operations with Keshan, Tyson, and Braxian military units. The results were unprecedented. The humans are inferior in virtually every conventional metric, Commander Wraith Nor reported to ZYX-Thera during a private briefing. Their ships are smaller, their weapons less powerful, their shields weaker. Yet in every tactical simulation, they achieve objectives that should be impossible. How? ZYX-Thera asked. Creativity, Wraith Nor replied. They don't fight the way we fight. They use unconventional tactics, asymmetric strategies, and psychological warfare. In one simulation, they defeated a Braxian battle group by exploiting a communication protocol vulnerability that's existed in sovereignty systems for 6,000 cycles. A vulnerability none of us ever noticed because we all use the same strategic frameworks. They think differently, Wraith Nor continued. Where we see established battle doctrine, they see patterns to exploit. Where we see protocol, they see opportunities. It's simultaneously impressive and deeply unsettling. Chancellor Vornake was discovering the same uncomfortable truth in the logistics sector. The humans had requested detailed information about sovereignty supply chains, ostensibly to integrate their own logistics networks. Within 2 cycles, they'd identified 47 inefficiencies in the Council's resource distribution system. Their quantum computing systems allowed them to model our entire supply network simultaneously, Vornake reported angrily to a private coalition meeting. They've proposed modifications that would increase efficiency by 18%. 18%. Do you understand what that means? It means we've been operating at suboptimal efficiency for thousands of cycles, and these newcomers identified the problems in 2 cycles. Even more frustrating, he continued, they're offering to share their optimization algorithms freely. They claim it benefits everyone if the sovereignty operates more efficiently. But I see the political calculation. They're making themselves indispensable. They're positioning themselves as the species that fixes problems others couldn't even identify. Ambassador Elwes Andra faced similar frustrations in the cultural sector. She had challenged humanity's cultural sophistication, expecting them to fail at the subtle arts of diplomacy and social integration. Instead, human artists, musicians, and philosophers were taking the sovereignty by storm. A human composer named Arya Nakamura had created a symphony incorporating instruments and musical traditions from 40 different species. The piece, titled Voices of the Stars, had become unexpectedly popular across multiple worlds. Human literature was being translated into hundreds of languages. Human visual art was appearing in galleries on sophisticated core worlds. They're contaminating our culture, OSS Andra complained during a council session. Human influence is spreading too rapidly, too widely. Their art is aggressive, their music is overwhelming, their stories focus obsessively on survival and conflict. Their stories focus on the same themes that resonate with every species, Scholar Printax corrected. Survival. Community. The struggle against entropy. The difference is that humans tell these stories with emotional intensity that other species find compelling. That's not contamination. That's cultural evolution. The integration program was revealing something the sovereignty had never anticipated. Humanity wasn't just adapting to galactic civilization. Galactic civilization was adapting to humanity. The transformation. 3 cycles later, the integration program was in full effect, and the sovereignty was discovering that humanity's capacity for adaptation extended far beyond military innovation. High Arbiter ZYX-Thera reviewed the reports from her observation station with increasing fascination and concern. The human observer on Earth, a diplomatic specialist named Veltarin, was sending daily updates that painted a complex picture of humanity's home world. The humans have restructured their entire governmental system in anticipation of full sovereignty integration, Veltarin reported. They've created new agencies specifically for interstellar relations, established protocols for technology exchange, and begun educational programs to prepare their population for contact with other species. More concerning, the report continued, their rate of adaptation is extraordinary. Within 3 cycles of recognition, they've already begun implementing modifications to their FTL drives based on preliminary data exchanged during scientific collaboration. Their quantum computing teams have proposed 17 new theoretical frameworks that Scholar Printax describes as revolutionary. Their military has reorganized around joint operation protocols with sovereignty forces. ZYX-Thera forwarded the report to Commander Wraith Nor with a private note. Your assessment was correct. They're not merely adapting to the sovereignty. They're positioning themselves to reshape it. The military integration exercises proved equally revealing. Admiral Okonkwo had personally led human forces in joint operations with Keshan, Tyson, and Braxian military units. The results were unprecedented. The humans are inferior in virtually every conventional metric, Commander Wraith Nor reported to ZYX-Thera during a private briefing. Their ships are smaller, their weapons less powerful, their shields weaker. Yet in every tactical simulation, they achieve objectives that should be impossible. How? ZYX-Thera asked. Creativity, Wraith Nor replied. They don't fight the way we fight. They use unconventional tactics, asymmetric strategies, and psychological warfare. In one simulation, they defeated a Braxian battle group by exploiting a communication protocol vulnerability that's existed in sovereignty systems for 6,000 cycles. A vulnerability none of us ever noticed because we all use the same strategic frameworks. They think differently, Wraith Nor continued. Where we see established battle doctrine, they see patterns to exploit. Where we see protocol, they see opportunities. It's simultaneously impressive and deeply unsettling. Chancellor Vornake was discovering the same uncomfortable truth in the logistics sector. The humans had requested detailed information about sovereignty supply chains, ostensibly to integrate their own logistics networks. Within 2 cycles, they'd identified 47 inefficiencies in the Council's resource distribution system. Their quantum computing systems allowed them to model our entire supply network simultaneously, Vornake reported angrily to a private coalition meeting. They've proposed modifications that would increase efficiency by 18%. 18%. Do you understand what that means? It means we've been operating at suboptimal efficiency for thousands of cycles, and these newcomers identified the problems in 2 cycles. Even more frustrating, he continued, they're offering to share their optimization algorithms freely. They claim it benefits everyone if the sovereignty operates more efficiently. But I see the political calculation. They're making themselves indispensable. They're positioning themselves as the species that fixes problems others couldn't even identify. Ambassador Aloysius Andra faced similar frustrations in the cultural sector. She had challenged humanity's cultural sophistication, expecting them to fail at the subtle arts of diplomacy and social integration. Instead, human artists, musicians, and philosophers were taking the sovereignty by storm. A human composer named Arya Nakamura had created a symphony incorporating instruments and musical traditions from 40 different species. The piece, titled Voices of the Stars, had become unexpectedly popular across multiple worlds. Human literature was being translated into hundreds of languages. Human visual art was appearing in galleries on sophisticated core worlds. They're contaminating our culture, OSS Andra complained during a council session. Human influence is spreading too rapidly, too widely. Their art is aggressive, their music is overwhelming, their stories focus obsessively on survival and conflict. Their stories focus on the same themes that resonate with every species, Scholar Printax corrected. Survival. Community. The struggle against entropy. The difference is that humans tell these stories with emotional intensity that other species find compelling. That's not contamination. That's cultural evolution. The integration program was revealing something the sovereignty had never anticipated. Humanity wasn't just adapting to galactic civilization. Galactic civilization was adapting to humanity. Ambassador Valen received a private communication from High Arbiter ZYX-Thra requesting an urgent meeting. They met in a neutral diplomatic suite, away from the main council chambers. "I need to understand your species' intentions," ZYX-Thra said without preamble. 3 cycles ago you were petitioning for basic recognition. Now your technology is being integrated into sovereignty systems. Your tactical innovations are being adopted by military forces. Your cultural products are influencing populations across hundreds of worlds. This transformation is happening too quickly. Is it transformation, Valen asked carefully, or is it simply revelation? Humanity has been developing independently for thousands of years. The sovereignty is simply now experiencing what we've always been. Creative, adaptive, relentlessly focused on improvement. You're destabilizing the existing order, ZYX-Thra stated. No, Valen corrected. We're improving the existing order. Your supply chains are more efficient. Your military tactics are more effective. Your culture is more vibrant. These are positive changes, High Arbiter. Changes that consolidate human influence, ZYX-Thra observed. You're building soft power at an extraordinary rate. Species that voted against your recognition are now requesting human technological assistance, military training, cultural exchanges. You're creating a network of dependent relationships that will give you disproportionate influence in council matters. We're creating mutually beneficial partnerships, Valen replied. Yes, these partnerships increase human influence, but they also strengthen the sovereignty as a whole. Isn't that what recognition was supposed to achieve? Integration that benefits everyone? You were supposed to integrate into our existing structures, ZYX-Thra said. Instead, you're rebuilding those structures around yourselves. That was never the intention. Valen leaned forward, her predator's gaze fixed on the High Arbiter. With respect, that's exactly the problem. The sovereignty has been operating under the assumption that galactic civilization is a finished product. That the only role for new species is to fit into existing hierarchies. But systems that don't evolve eventually collapse. We're not threatening the sovereignty. We're ensuring its long-term survival through necessary adaptation. That's remarkably arrogant, ZYX-Thra observed. That's remarkably pragmatic, Valen countered. High Arbiter, you granted us recognition because Commander Wraith Nor correctly identified that we would expand regardless of your decision. The same logic applies now. Humanity will continue innovating, creating, and improving. The question isn't whether that happens. The question is whether the sovereignty embraces that change or fights against it. ZYX-Thra processed this in silence for a long moment. Finally, she asked, "What do you want, Ambassador?" "Long-term, what is humanity's goal?" "Partnership," Valen replied simply. "True partnership, not subordination. We want to contribute to galactic civilization as equals. We want to share our innovations and benefit from others' knowledge. We want to explore the universe alongside species that share our curiosity and drive. And yes, we want influence proportional to our contributions. Is that unreasonable?" "It's unprecedented," ZYX-Thra said. "Good," Valen smiled. "Unprecedented is what humanity does best." 1 cycle later, Chancellor Vornake called for an emergency council session. His massive form filled the central platform, his translated voice carrying barely restrained fury. "I am calling for an immediate review of Earth's recognition status," he announced. "The probationary period is designed to assess whether new species can integrate appropriately. Humanity has not integrated. They have invaded. Their technology pervades our systems. Their military tactics undermine established doctrine. Their cultural products flood our markets. This is not integration. This is conquest by assimilation. Furthermore," Vornake continued, "they have violated the spirit of their probationary status. Limited voting rights were intended to restrict their influence while they learned council procedures. Instead, they've built soft power networks that give them effective veto authority over multiple issue areas. They've circumvented restrictions through manipulation rather than respecting their intent." The chamber buzzed with debate. Some delegates agreed with the Chancellor's assessment. Others argued that humanity's success was the integration program working as intended. Ambassador Valen remained silent during the initial arguments, her expression carefully neutral. Finally, High Arbiter ZYX-Thra called for her response. "Chancellor Vornake accuses humanity of conquest by assimilation," Valen began. "He's correct, but he's wrong about what that means. We didn't come to the sovereignty to conquer territory or subjugate species. We came to conquer ignorance, inefficiency, stagnation. Every improvement we've contributed has strengthened the sovereignty, not weakened it. You've strengthened your own position, Vornake countered. Yes, Valen agreed. Because in the sovereignty as it currently exists, strength and contribution are linked. We've proven our value. We've demonstrated that our innovations benefit everyone. If that increases our influence, isn't that the system working as designed? The system was designed to reward species that respect hierarchy, OSS Andra interjected. You respect nothing except your own advancement. We respect competence, Valen replied. We respect innovation. We respect species that contribute to galactic civilization rather than simply maintaining their position within it. If that philosophy offends those who prefer the old order, perhaps that says more about the old order than it does about humanity. The debate raged for hours. Finally, ZYX called for a vote on the Chancellor's motion to review Earth's recognition status. The results were decisive. 321 delegates voted against review. Only 96 supported it. In just 3 cycles, humanity had transformed from a barely accepted newcomer to a species with broad support across the sovereignty. Chancellor Vornake's translator emitted sounds of disgust as he departed the chamber. But even he recognized the political reality. Humanity had won not through military might or political manipulation, but through demonstrated value. They had made themselves indispensable. As the session concluded, General Kordax approached Ambassador Valen. You've accomplished in 3 cycles what most species require centuries to achieve, the Tyson General observed. You've gone from probationary member to influential partner. Your enemies have become isolated. Your allies have multiplied. It's an impressive tactical victory. It's just the beginning, Valen replied. Humanity didn't come to the stars to join someone else's civilization. We came to help build a civilization worthy of the galaxy's potential. The sovereignty was stagnant, comfortable, complacent. We're changing that. And if the old powers resist that change? Kordax asked. Valen's smile carried the full weight of human determination. Then they'll learn the same lesson countless others have learned throughout Earth's history. Adapt or become irrelevant. Progress is inevitable. The only question is whether you're part of it or left behind by it. Far above the council chamber, in her private observatory, High Arbiter ZYX watched the stars and contemplated the future. The sovereignty had ruled the known galaxy for 12,000 cycles through careful control, deliberate management, and resistance to destabilizing change. In 3 cycles, humanity had fundamentally challenged that entire model. They had proven that rapid advancement wasn't inherently destructive. That innovation could strengthen rather than destabilize. That new voices could improve rather than disrupt the conversation. They had also proven something more unsettling. The sovereignty's comfortable dominance had been built on preventing exactly the kind of dynamic, aggressive, creative species that humanity represented from gaining influence. High Arbiter, her assistant's communication arrived. The humans have submitted a formal proposal for the Council's consideration. They're suggesting a complete restructuring of the integration program to accommodate rapid advancement species more effectively. ZYX's optical sensors dimmed in what might have been amusement or resignation. Of course they were. Humanity had proven they could succeed in the existing system. Now they wanted to rebuild that system to help others like themselves. Schedule it for the next General Assembly, she replied. And prepare the Council for another long debate. The humans are just getting started. In the human delegation quarters, Ambassador Kira Valen, Dr. Marcus Chin, and Admiral Sarah Okonkwo reviewed their progress and planned their next moves. 3 cycles, Chin marveled. We went from barely accepted to influential partners in 3 cycles. It was always going to be fast, Valen replied. Humanity doesn't do anything slowly. We adapt, we improve, we advance. It's what we've always done. The old powers won't accept this transformation peacefully, Okonkwo warned. Vornake and his allies will find ways to strike back. Let them try, Valen said confidently. We've proven we belong here. More importantly, we've proven the sovereignty needs us. Our technology. Our innovation. Our refusal to accept stagnation as acceptable. We're not just members of this council anymore. Then what are we? Chin asked. Valen looked up at the stars visible through the viewport, the same stars humanity had gazed upon for millennia before finally reaching them. We're the future, she said simply. And the future waits for no one,